Discover the hidden truth. My son-in-law's unexpected betrayal sparked a transformative journey. The frost clung to the morning air like a secret, wrapping the small town in hues of silver and gray. As Susan Black hurried to the cafe before her shift, something was brewing beneath the surface of her ordinary life, a storm she never saw coming. A conversation she overheard ripped through her routine calm. Irregularities in the family business, a shopkeeper murmured, eyes darting like a child beset by guilt. With each careless word, a knot tightened in Susan's stomach. She felt it, a flicker of betrayal that threatened everything she held dear. Her heart ached with confusion. Jake, her son-in-law, had woven himself into their lives like the thick threads of well-made fabric. It didn't make sense. He was charming, ambitious, the sort of person who radiated trust. But doubt was a creeping vine, twisting around her thoughts, squeezing tighter with every implication of deception. Her late husband's hard work had built a legacy, one that Susan fiercely guarded. How could Jake betray that? A mix of anger and despair flared within her, battling against an overwhelming desire to shield Emily from the truth. At work, Susan was efficient, her hands moving deftly, yet her mind spiraled with questions. Had she been blind? As she flipped through old financial documents that had gathered dust, guilt gnawed at her. Could she rally the courage to confront Jake, potentially ripping apart the family bond? The weight was unbearable. Shuffling through receipts and transactions, blood pumped in her ears as fear gripped her heart, fear not just of betrayal but of the trauma that might follow. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Nights morphed into a breakneck race against time. Shadows in the corners of her small house felt alive, taunting her as she pieced it together like a frail puzzle. She stumbled upon her late husband's journal, its pages whispering truths, values, principles, the sweat of hard work guiding lights that had dimmed under the weight of unwelcome revelations. Reading his words ignited something dormant within her. Determination burgeoned. She sought guidance from an elderly mentor, sinking into the intricacies of the law. Each session brought empowerment, equipping her with tools to reclaim her family's honor. Yet, the dread of confronting Jake loomed larger, tightening its grip. On a damp Saturday evening, the air thickened with tension as Jake's charming smile greeted her. She felt the trembling in her muscles, the racing of her heart, stifled by the possibility of a confrontation. Weakness threatened to cloud her resolve. But Susan could no longer be a passive observer in her life. The truth hovered like a distant storm, ready to explode. And as she prepared to speak the words that lingered on her tongue, words of loyalty, anger, grief, questions raced through her mind. Would she lose everything if she stood up for her husband's legacy? Or would she finally find the voice she had buried under years of loyalty? With every breath, the clock ticked louder. The silence in the room became a heavy curtain, thick with unspoken words and hidden fears. Susan steeled herself, the very air crackling with unresolved tension. Jake settled comfortably onto the couch, completely unaware of the tempest brewing within her. She caught herself wishing he would sense the shift in energy, but he didn't, and that realization ignited a flame of frustration. Jake, she started, her voice steady but quiet, almost as if the words were afraid to escape her lips. His gaze met hers, inquisitive yet oblivious to the gravity of the moment. She was caught, straddling the line between denial and revelation. Is everything okay? He asked, that infuriating charm still intact. Did he know? The question stabbed at her, a reminder that this facade had worn thin, stretched by the weight of her fears. Clenching her fists, she resisted the urge to shout her suspicions. Instead, she pondered the truth she had discovered, a truth that had transformed her from a passive participant into a fierce guardian of her family's legacy. This business, I've been hearing some troubling things, she admitted, the admission writhing in her stomach like a snake ready to strike. His reaction was instantaneous. An eyebrow arched in mock surprise. Troubling? What do you mean? His voice feigned innocence, but her instincts screamed that the charm he wielded was a veneer for something darker. Susan inhaled deeply, grounding herself in the empowerment she had cultivated from her late husband's principles. What exactly are you doing with the financials, Jake? Are there irregularities? The words were sharper than she intended, but the moment had arrived. He paused, tension wrapping itself around them. You have to trust me, he replied, sincerity painted across his face. Was it genuine concern, or another layer of deception? His own eyes darted away, betraying the calm he tried to exude. The doubt clawed at her insides, anchoring her to disbelief. Trust can be a fragile thing. The realization rolled through her like a tidal wave. This confrontation was not merely about Jake's honesty. This was a reclamation of her own voice, her authority. She had spent too long relegating her power to others. As conversations of betrayal and familial loyalty swirled, clarity settled in. What would it mean to confront this man she once viewed as family? Beyond the immediate pain, was there a chance for growth, for an understanding that could emerge from the ashes of betrayal? With every piece of evidence she had gathered and the fire inside her ignited, she could no longer ignore the whisperings of her intuition. This confrontation was not just about saving a business. It was about preserving her identity, her husband's legacy, and her role in her daughter's life, one where she stood, empowered, not shackled by fear. Jake, I need you to be honest with me. Either we face this together, or I'll have no choice but to take action. The determination in her voice startled even her. She was no longer the soft-spoken woman lurking in shadowed corners. She was a force ready to be reckoned with. Jake's face paled, and she saw a flicker of trepidation cross his features. There was more to discover, more layers of deception to peel back. The clock hadn't merely ticked louder. It had propelled her into a moment of truth, and as she positioned herself to face the consequences, the heart of the storm within her grew palpable. What was Jake hiding, and could she handle the revelations that awaited her? The moment of truth was upon them, and she was ready to unmask the betrayal lurking in the shadows. Would she shatter the familial bonds, or could they be rebuilt amidst the wreckage? The path forward was fraught with tension, and she felt the pressure intensify. The question loomed larger than ever. Was she prepared for what lay ahead? Susan's heart raced as she watched Jake's demeanor shift, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The comfortable air of the room had morphed into an electrified atmosphere, each second stretching into eternity as every unspoken thought weighed heavily between them. What if Jake's charm was hiding something sinister? Each fleeting moment brought her closer to unraveling the truth. Honestly, Susan, he began, a forced calm revealing its cracks, you're being paranoid. There's nothing going on that you need to worry about. His voice dripped with a blend of condescension and barely masked irritation, igniting her resolve. Paranoia was often the cloak of deception. She would not be fooled. Jake, if you think I'm paranoid, then let us clarify this together. She leaned forward, channeling the strength built over years of nurturing her family instead of playing a supporting role to others. Bring me the financial records and I'll review them myself. His eyes darkened for a fleeting moment, the kind of shadow that skittered across his normally versatile features. You don't need to do that. I've got everything under control. Control can often be an illusion. The words resonated far beyond the confines of this moment. They tapped into years of silent acquiescence, a whisper against the walls of her independence. In this confrontation, she was reclaiming her agency. No longer the dutiful wife or the passive bystander, she was stepping into a realm of confidence that she hadn't realized she possessed. Susan took a deep breath, contemplating her next move with the precision of a master strategist. This was not merely about uncovering discrepancies in numbers. It was about confronting her own fears and doubts. Could she truly risk the comfort of her previous existence for a confrontation that may fracture the remaining ties in her life? The thought sent a shiver through her, but deep down, instincts rooted in survival surged forward. I'm trying to support my daughter's future, she stated, her voice now fortified with purpose. What happens if we don't confront this? If there's even a hint of impropriety, we stand to lose everything. I don't expect you to understand, but know this. My family means everything to me. Each syllable rolled out with a gravity that she sensed, and Jake, too, must have felt it. You think digging will help? Jake's voice dipped into a realm of scoffing disbelief, yet the tremor underneath begged the question. Did he feel cornered? Uncovering the truth always helps. At least I'll know what I'm facing. The immediacy of her conviction surprised her. She was caught in a whirlwind of emotions from fear to determination. The stakes had risen, and within that turbulence, she felt herself expanding, shedding layers of uncertainty. As she saw the moment sink in for Jake, a single thought remained echoing in her mind: pursuit of the truth might lead her down a path she never envisioned. The intimacy of family could be at risk, but so too was her autonomy. The silence that lingered afterward was thick with the promise of reckoning, and suddenly Susan was aware of the hard truth. A part of her yearned for closure, while another craved something more profound: the power to forge a new identity unshackled by fear, guilt, or past expectations. I hope you understand, Susan said softly, dropping her voice an octave as she tilted her chin defiantly. This is what needs to happen. Jake's expression morphed, a kaleidoscope of emotions half hidden. The feigned charm was unraveling, revealing fear where confidence once resided. The confrontation had begun. She had ignited the first match in a potential wildfire. As tensions danced in the air between them, an unsettling thought surfaced: if she ventured too far, would she navigate a path of betrayal beyond this moment? She needed to tread carefully, balancing confrontation with preservation. Each step led toward a deeper understanding of herself, but the fiery uncertainty of truth loomed ahead. What had she unleashed? As she prepared her next move, her heart raced with anticipation and dread. Was she ready to confront whatever lay behind Jake's facade? The battle for her family's legacy was only just beginning, and in her gut, she knew the next move was critical. The air thickened with unspoken tension as Susan stood firm in her decision. She dismissed the apprehension creeping into her thoughts, redirecting her focus toward the mission at hand. The notion of poring over Jake's financial records grew more urgent. Even though her instincts whispered doubts, the embers of empowerment ignited within her. She had stretched her boundaries initially defined by others. Now was the time to see how far she could go. Before acting, Susan took a moment to gather her thoughts in quiet reflection. What would uncovering the truth reveal, not just about Jake, but about herself? She searched for a flicker of the trustworthy partner she once knew, but all she found was a hardened facade, a hollowed version of the man who had promised to uphold their family, to protect it. This realization burned fiercely. She couldn't allow the betrayal to reshape her identity any longer. She grabbed her phone and typed a brief, pointed message to her sister, the only family member she trusted with this turmoil. Meeting at the usual cafe would give her the space to process everything, safe from prying eyes at home. The anticipation of sharing her suspicions and plans stilled her racing heartbeat. It was a pivotal decision, one that nudged her closer to rediscovering her own voice. At the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee blended with warmth and familiarity. As her sister donned a look of concern, Susan felt a warmth descend over her insecurities. Here in this sanctuary, she was not merely someone's wife or mother. She was Susan, a woman with her own desires and ambitions. After exchanging pleasantries, her sister leaned forward, urging her to reveal what weighed on her mind. What's going on, Susan? You look different, like you're carrying a weight you're ready to shed. The perfectly innocent question suddenly felt like a mantra. I think Jake is hiding something. I need to dig into the finances and I need your support. The words, once a frayed thread of fear, now emitted a powerful conviction. Her sister's eyes widened with concern. Are you sure? This seems serious. What if you're wrong? The question stung, but it also strengthened her resolve. I'm tired of sitting in the shadows. Whether I uncover a problem or not, I have to know who I'm dealing with. If I won't stand for my own truth, who will? The stakes are too high. Silence enveloped them, but the air shifted perceptibly as her sister nodded slowly. You're right. Whatever his reasons may be, you must seek the truth. Just promise me to be careful. Don't let this consume you. With her sister's affirmation, Susan's confidence swelled. She couldn't hide in complacency anymore. The act of searching for the financial records would be her entry to liberation, a way to reclaim the narrative she had long allowed others to dictate. Later that night, as she scoured the house for the documents, Susan felt empowered. Each file she unearthed represented her recovery, her reawakening from a stifled existence. But her heart also raced with caution. Buried within those records might be revelations that would alter the course of her life irrevocably. Sifting through the numbers, she encountered inconsistencies that made her gut churn. Were they minor oversights, or were they signs of something far more distressing? She knew this moment would define her journey. She drew a sharp breath, determined not to back down. In that instant, a bead of perspiration dripped down her brow. She was on the precipice of upheaval, standing at the fork of her fate. The images of her daughter flashed in her mind, reminding her of the promise she had made to protect their future. The stakes were high, and as she flipped through the last few pages, inflected with anxiety and anticipation, she understood that uncovering the truth could tear apart the facade she had cultivated for so long. The question now echoed in her mind. Was she ready to confront whatever harsh realities awaited her? The walls she had built around her life felt precarious, and with every revelation, they threatened to crumble. Little did she know, preparing to unravel the tapestry woven with deceit would unveil secrets not only about Jake, but about herself. A transformative journey was about to begin. What awaited her on the other side of this confrontation made her pulse quicken. Would she break free, or would she find herself ensnared? As a new layer of her resolve unfolded, she sensed that the truth was closer than ever, and it beckoned, resonating with an urgency she could no longer ignore. Susan's heart raced as she sorted through document after document, an unyielding need for truth propelling her forward. The glow of the desk lamp illuminated scrawled figures and familiar names, each one a clue inviting her deeper into the chaotic world of Jake's secrets. She could feel the weight of each discovery pressing down upon her, fueling her determination to unravel the complexities of their life together. After many minutes of frustration, her mind framed the erratic patterns she saw in the spreadsheets. The thought of confronting Jake hung like a storm cloud over her resolve. What if everything she found was true? Would she have the courage to stand her ground, or would fear send her spiraling back into silence? The question clutched at her, but she knew the answer dwelled in her ability to confront the reality before her. When she finally found the account statements, her stomach dropped. There it was. A glaring discrepancy in transactions, large transfers to an unknown account where her heart sank like a stone. Each number carried the weight of a hidden life Susan could never have imagined. Despite the chill creeping up her spine, she felt an odd rush of exhilaration. This was the journey she had chosen, and with every revelation, she felt herself stepping further away from the tether of her complacency. She paused, allowing the implications of what she was seeing to settle. Beyond the financial misdeeds lay a broader story, one that painted a stark portrait of their life. These choices, entwined with betrayal and deceit, were threads pulled by Jake that led them toward an uncertain future. Susan's thoughts swirled with anger, hurt, and finally empowerment. Each revelation revealed the strength she hadn't realized was simmering beneath her surface, a slow burn waiting for ignition. The knowledge she gained changed her perspective, forcing her to confront her deeper insecurity, her feelings of inadequacy that had been rooted in years of dependence. She had spent too long being someone's wife or mother, tethered to Jake's decisions and his version of their life. But now, with a clearer lens, Susan recognized that she had a voice, one filled with silent strength ready to emerge. Still trembling with the weight of her discoveries, she began drafting a plan. It wasn't simply about confronting Jake anymore. This journey was also about reclaiming her own narrative, about fortifying her identity. She found herself pondering questions that had once felt insurmountable. What do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to become? The path ahead began to gleam with possibility, overshadowing the darkness that had loomed for too long. With every financial record examined, Susan felt her confidence grow. In a sudden moment of clarity, she resolved to confront Jake not only about the financial discrepancies, but also about the erosion of trust that had crept into their marriage. This was not merely a financial audit. It was a reckoning, a necessary confrontation that would allow her to step into her own power. However, the thought of the conversation sent chills through her. What if he turned the tables, playing on her fears? What if he retaliated against her accusations? Susan understood that standing up for herself came with risks. But as she reviewed the papers one last time, she felt the ground beneath her shift. It was time to confront the murky waters of their relationship. As dawn broke, casting light across the kitchen where she had unearthed her hidden truths, Susan inhaled deeply, a newfound resolve washing over her. This moment was pivotal, not just as a confrontation but as a commitment to herself, to her children, and to the future she envisioned. But just as she felt ready to initiate this stir of change, her phone buzzed, displaying a message from Jake. "We need to talk." The dread coiled tightly in her stomach as her mind raced with implications. What was he planning? And how would her budding fortitude fare against what was to come? As she braced herself for the impending storm, doubt began to creep in. Would she be able to uphold the strength she felt? Or would Jake's familiar manipulations pull her back into old patterns? The race against time to secure her agency had begun, and the outcome would determine her future. Susan sat at the kitchen table, staring at the phone in her palm. Each second became an eternity as she contemplated her next move. The air around her thickened with conflicting emotions, resolute determination battling against the shadows of doubt. She took another deep breath, steadying herself. It was time to regain control of her narrative. The message from Jake wasn't just a prompt for a conversation. It felt like the looming shadow of an uncertain outcome. What did he want to discuss? Was it a preamble to unveiling his web of deceit or simply a soft approach to put her at ease? She mulled over these possibilities, dissecting every previous conversation they'd had about finances, trust, and a future that felt increasingly out of reach. Though the kitchen was bright with morning light, it felt eerily constricting, a stark contrast to the expansive future she envisioned for herself. Susan was done being cornered by fear. She was ready to dismantle the illusions Jake had built around their life. From that chaos she could carve out her identity, one that rested on her terms. Her thoughts shifted to her kids. A flood of protectiveness surged within her. What kind of example was she setting? She had always wanted to show them resilience and honesty, yet here she was entangled in her husband's deception. This was not merely about her. It was about instilling foundational values in them. They needed to learn that silence in the face of wrongdoing was a disservice to oneself. Picking up the documents, Susan placed them meticulously on the table, organizing them into a folder labeled Support Evidence. This wasn't just combat. It was anchoring her truth. Each statement was a weighted stone anchoring her confidence to this confrontation. She was methodically gearing up, convinced that clarity, rather than chaos, would characterize their exchange. Gazing out of the window, she caught sight of a robin flitting about in the brisk morning air. It struck her as a symbol of renewal, the beginning of something transformative. The bird's quest for food to feed its young mirrored her own awakening. She thought about what she truly wanted: independence, respect, a vibrant future unshadowed by deceit. With urgency pulsating through her mind, she jotted down notes, clarifying her thoughts on everything she wanted to address. The discrepancies in their finances, the implications of his choices. But with each point, the heart of her argument became clear. The erosion of trust and the importance of transparency in a partnership. She felt a thrill, the words flowing from her pen assertive and uncompromising. In grappling with those pieces of their lives, Susan realized that confronting Jake wasn't just an external battle. It was an internal redemption. It was her way of reclaiming a part of herself that had been neglected for far too long. Finally, amid her notes, she scrawled down the words she knew she would need to say. "I am not afraid of the truth, Jake." This was the essence of her commitment to hold him accountable, not simply for his actions, but for the roles he played in shaping her reality. As Susan finished her preparation, she cast one final glance at the folder. She felt an exhilarating rush, a combination of hope and anxious anticipation. Moments of clarity stirred new possibilities, their enormity both daunting and liberating. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Jake. "When are you free?" At that moment, reality crashed against her internal fortitude with a jarring force. If he thought she would yield, he was gravely mistaken. The time for her to rise was now. But as she hit send on her affirmative response, a pang of fear shot through her. What would she face during their conversation? The outcome was uncertain. The stakes felt monumental. Would her newfound resolve stand firm in the storm of Jake's manipulations? The confrontation was imminent, but so was her evolution. As she pressed her palms against the table, readying herself for the next phase of her journey, the ring of the doorbell echoed through the house. Susan froze, heart racing as the reality of her impending confrontation loomed closer. Was it Jake? And what would the meeting reveal? Susan took a deep breath as she moved toward the door, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Each step felt grounded yet charged with tension, an oscillation between anxiety and the burgeoning resolve she had cultivated. When she finally opened the door, the last thing she expected was to see her mother standing there, worry etched into her features. "Mom!" Susan breathed, her surprise morphing into a mix of relief and confusion. "What are you doing here?" "I was in the neighborhood," her mother said softly, stepping inside. "I wanted to check on you. I sensed something was off from our last call." Susan closed the door behind her, the warmth of the house contrasting sharply with the chill of uncertainty that had settled deep within her. She hesitated, caught between the urge to confide in her mother and the instinct to protect the fragile momentum she had built against Jake. "It's just a lot on my plate," she said, gesturing toward the kitchen table where her folder sat. "I'm working through some things." Her mother's eyes flickered toward the table, instantly recognizing the weight of those documents. "Susan, if you're dealing with something serious, you know you can talk to me. I'm here for you." That simple gesture, the offer of support, tugged at Susan's heart. It reminded her of how she grew up, leaning on her mother through the turbulence of life. Yet, the child inside of her warned against dragging family into her chaos, thinking perhaps it could end up being another burden. "I appreciate that, really," Susan replied, shifting her weight awkwardly. "But this is something I need to handle on my own for me, and for the kids." Her mother's expression softened. "I get that, but don't close me out. You don't have to bear everything alone." At that moment, Susan realized that her struggle for independence didn't mean she had to sever ties with those who wanted to support her. She had spent years nurturing a facade of strength, but true courage began with vulnerability. The more she absorbed her mother's genuine concern, the more clarity settled in her chest. "I'm talking to Jake today," she finally confessed, her voice steady now. "I need to confront him about everything, about the finances and the trust that's crumbled between us." Her mother nodded, her expression shifting to one of fierce pride. "You're taking control, sweetheart. Just remember, you're stronger than you think, and whatever he throws at you, you can handle it." As they shared the moment, Susan felt the reassurance seep into her bones, fortifying her resolve. Her mother's unwavering belief in her abilities dawned like a sunrise, chasing away shadows of self-doubt. "Can I help you prepare?" her mother asked, glancing at the folder. "Sometimes just talking things through can shed light on what's important." Susan considered the offer, appreciating the gesture. It wasn't just about the confrontation. It was about reclaiming her narrative step by step, peeling back the layers of fear and indecisiveness. Together, they shifted the conversation towards the specifics of her forthcoming clash with Jake, each note, each point of concern explored, dissected as if they were puzzle pieces coming together to reveal a bigger picture. By the time Susan had to leave for the meeting with Jake, the impending fear that had initially gripped her began to dull. She felt empowered, fueled by her mother's faith in her, and energized by the resolve that she was more than just a victim. She was a woman on a mission, ready to face whatever awaited her. As she stepped outside, pulling in a deep breath of crisp air, she felt the weight of the folder in her hand, a tangible embodiment of her journey toward independence. But as she rounded the corner toward her car, a quick movement caught her eye. Across the street, she noticed Jake's car parked, and her heart raced again, not from fear, but from a fierce determination. The time had come to face him, and as the weight of her choices settled upon her like armor, she whispered to herself, "I won't back down." Just then, her phone buzzed again, another message from Jake. "I'm here. Let us talk." For that final moment, everything hung in the balance. Would this be the moment of reckoning, or the catalyst for a new twist in their fracturing story? Susan squared her shoulders, each step toward Jake imbued with her evolving strength. The confrontation awaited, but so would the emergence of the real Susan, ready to face whatever truths lay ahead. Susan approached Jake's car, each step a calculated mix of trepidation and determination. He leaned against the side, arms crossed, a sardonic smirk plastered across his face that sent coils of anger spiraling through her. It was as if he found amusement in the turmoil he had orchestrated, and that realization ignited something fierce within her. "Let us talk," she stated firmly, choosing to elude the bait of his mockery. She walked past him to a nearby bench, gesturing for him to join her. He straightened, surprised by her resolve, but dropped his posture of disdain. She felt the weight of the folder resting on her lap, a reminder of the stakes involved. The air thickened with unspoken words, and she fought against the rising anxiety. This was her moment. Why did you go behind my back? Susan's voice was steady though her heart raced. She searched his expression for the truth. The investments, the loans you knew I wouldn't approve. Jake shifted, feigning casualness, but a flicker of guilt crossed his features. I thought I could handle it better, he offered. A laugh escaping that held no humor. You always worry too much. You're too cautious, Susie. Cautious? Or just aware? She countered, disbelief bubbling underneath the surface. You put us in jeopardy. Did you even think about the kids? His smirk faltered, revealing a glimpse of the real Jake beneath his bravado. I was trying to secure our future. I didn't want you worrying about cash flow. I thought it would be a surprise. A surprise that lands us in debt? You crossed the line, Jake. This isn't just about finances. It's about trust. Her voice gained strength, emboldened by the revelation that he still thought he could control her narrative. He leaned closer, the confrontation sharpening the edges of their simmering emotions. I did what I thought was best. Why can't you just see it? You and your plans don't matter if they're built on deceit. Susan interrupted, her pulse quickening. How easily he twisted their reality, turning her vigilance into something petty. I can't be part of this anymore. I can't be in a relationship where I am constantly doubting your integrity. For a moment, silence enveloped them. She held his gaze, refusing to look away, challenging him to meet her honesty with sincerity. After a beat, she sighed deeply, anchoring herself to the ground beneath her. I am not the person you think I am, Jake. I want to be your punching bag or your fallback. I need to take control of this. His eyes narrowed, and attention crept back into his stance. So you're walking away? Just like that? Not just like that, she shot back, her voice rising with conviction. I am reclaiming my life and my children's. I want to let you dictate our futures through your failures. The moment hung heavily between them, a palpable division. Susan could feel the shift within. Each word she spoke felt like a brick laid down to build the wall around her independence. Her heart still trembled, but it was with the thrill of asserting control rather than fear. Jake took a step back, a mix of confusion and frustration playing across his features. You're making a mistake, Susan. Maybe, she replied, straightening her spine. But it's my mistake to make. It's my life. With those final words, she stood and turned to leave, adrenaline coursing through her veins, electrifying a new sense of freedom. As she walked away, she felt lighter, as if every step was shedding another layer of doubt. Yet as she reached her car, a new wave of uncertainty washed over her. Had she truly ended it, or would he try to pull her back again? The battle wasn't just external. Deep inside, she grappled with her feelings for Jake, mixed with the newfound clarity of her decisions. Her phone buzzed once more, another message. You think you can just walk away? I have things you don't know about. There it was, the bait of a threat cloaked in the remnants of their past. Susan froze, taste of steel in her mouth. Would he unleash more problems, or could this finally be the raw confrontation that led to liberation? With doubt clawing at her resolve, she realized that while she'd shaken off one chain, there were more yet to come. The pull to know what he meant was tempting, but her heart thrummed with a new purpose. The path to reclaiming her life had begun, but it was fraught with precarious choices. Would she risk diving deeper or fortify the freedom she had begun to taste? The next chapter awaited her, but the question loomed: was she ready for whatever truths Jake held? Or would they shatter her purpose once again? Susan gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, as she processed Jake's last message. Doubts swirled around her mind like autumn leaves caught in a gust. What could he possibly know? It felt like a carefully laid trap, and yet the unknown pulled her. She breathed deeply, reminding herself that knowledge was power, but asking oneself how much power was too much was a different story. She turned on the engine, the hum of the car providing a backdrop to her turbulent thoughts. While the world outside seemed unchanged, she felt as if she had stepped into another dimension where she was no longer defined by Jake's expectations or their troubled past. The prospect of self-discovery flickered dimly, and she couldn't allow it to be snuffed out by uncertainty. The drive home was a cacophony of signals battling for her attention. The radio buzzed. Each news piece felt trivial compared to the storm brewing within her. How had she let herself become so entwined in another person's choices? This time she vowed it would be different. She would not allow herself to be swept away in someone else's narrative. Control was now synonymous with choice, and she needed to learn the art of editing her own story. Arriving at her house, she parked and paused to absorb the familiar surroundings: the freshly painted trim, the overgrown garden. They were comforting constants in her life. But as she stepped inside, the weight of her decisions settled in. The kids were still at school, leaving her with quiet time to reflect. With deliberate steps, she made her way to the kitchen, clearing the clutter from the table with a newfound intention to create a space for herself. Each item tossed away felt symbolic, a release of past confusions and distractions. While she softly whistled a tune, she formulated a plan, one that involved next steps not just as a response to Jake, but as a proactive measure for her future. She grabbed a pen and paper, spilling thoughts onto the page like a painter swiping vibrant colors onto a canvas. What did she want for herself and her children? Financial stability, professional growth, independence. Each element pen fueled her resolve and became a map for her evolution. Yet, among the strokes of ambition, a voice in the back of her mind whispered caution. Was she truly ready for the confrontation that loomed? Engaging Jake again felt like igniting an unresolved fuse, and what he might reveal could dismantle the foundation she was trying so desperately to build. The balance between confrontation and survival lingered like a delicate scale, and she wasn't certain which side she supported. Diving deeper into her list, she began to identify her strengths: her smarts in negotiations, her knack for planning, and her ability to engage in difficult conversations. There lay a reservoir of potential within her that she hadn't fully accessed yet. Each realization felt like an infusion of courage coursing through her. Susan's phone buzzed again, jolting her out of her focused thoughts. It was another message from Jake, this one unexpectedly simple. "Meet me." The gravity of his words hung heavily in the air. Did he want to discuss their mess once more, or was it something far deadlier? Hesitating would only allow her fear to dictate her next move. As shadows of doubt crept back in, her internal struggle intensified. Should she ignore him or face whatever revelations he had prepared? Sometimes confronting turmoil could lead to insight and empowerment. Sometimes it only spiraled into chaos. She curled her fingers tight around the edges of the table, feeling reality shift underneath her. With her heart pounding, she made her choice. "It's time to face the truth, whatever it may bring," she uttered softly to herself, a mantra meant to absolve the trepidation rising within her. The path unfolded before her, and clarity settled like dust after a storm. She shook off the lingering sense of hesitation, ready to step toward the confrontation that would test her limits. Would he reveal something that changed everything, or would she finally be able to hold her ground? The stakes were higher than ever, and she had to determine if she was ready for the fallout or the liberation that awaited her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting brilliant shades of orange and purple across the sky, Susan Black felt a mix of anticipation and resolve. She stood poised at the precipice of her own transformation, knowing that every confrontation came with the potential for profound change. The last message from Jake echoed in her mind, prompting her decisiveness. She had to confront what lay before her. Arriving at the small park they often visited, her breath caught at the sight of Jake leaning against a tree, arms crossed defensively. Each step she took felt heavier, laden with her newfound understanding of herself, while the gravity of their past loomed large. This was not merely a conversation, it was a reckoning, a culmination of the awakening that had started inside her. "Jake," she called out, her voice clear and unwavering. She could see his surprise morph into a semblance of recognition. He was used to seeing her subdued, compliant. Today would be different. "Hey, Susie," he responded, the sarcasm creeping back into his tone. But she didn't flinch. The old habits that ensnared her were no longer suffocating her resolve. "Cut the charm," she shot back, recalling the charm he had cultivated so carefully. Each word dripped with the authority she had reclaimed from the depths of her despair. "This isn't about pleasantries. I need you to be honest." Jake's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of wariness surfacing. About what exactly? About everything, she stated, brandishing the folder she had meticulously prepared. I've seen the discrepancies. I'm not afraid anymore to uncover the truth of our situation. The financial irregularities raise alarm bells that echo far beyond surface-level discrepancies. A tense silence settled in the air, and she watched a multitude of emotions flicker across his face: surprise, regret, and finally anger. You're making a big deal out of nothing, Susan. You don't understand the business like I do, he replied, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. Exactly, she said, and the strength behind her assertion surprised even her. I don't want to be blindsided by your choices. My goal is to protect our family's legacy, to safeguard the future of our children. But I need to know the truth about what we have been building together. I refuse to live in ignorance any longer. The renewed confidence in her voice struck a chord, and in that moment, she felt the walls around her breaking, walls that she had allowed to define her. This was her chance to reclaim the very foundation of her life, to prove that resilience was embedded in her identity. We both stand to lose everything if we don't address this. But if there's a chance to repair what's broken, we must do it together without lies. For a brief second, ambiguity enveloped them. Jake's facade cracked further, his postured bravado unraveling. Are you really ready for where this conversation leads? He whispered, vulnerability threading through his unease. Yes, she affirmed. Clarity might reveal truths that are difficult, but clarity is empowering. This moment is ours to define. He shifted slightly, glancing away, as if weighing her words against the reality of what they might unveil. I didn't mean for it to spiral this far, his voice dropped, faltering under the weight of her unwavering gaze. Then stop pretending it's harmless. Make this right, she pressed, feeling the surge of emotional authority pulsing through her as the conversation unfolded. We have to establish an honest space, one where accountability fosters trust. As he took a deep breath, Susan felt a sense of fortitude building within her. This was no longer just about Jake. It was about establishing the tenets of her true self, crystallizing her identity amidst the chaos. With every word exchanged, she could sense the shift. I can fix this. Just give me a chance, he finally said, the bravado now stripped bare. No more chances based on empty promises, Jake. It's time to lay everything on the table. If we're going to fight for our family, we need transparency. With that statement, she felt the pivot in their relationship. This was the beginning of something far deeper than she had ever anticipated. As they continued to navigate the nuances of their shared past, recounting their struggles against the backdrop of raw honesty, Susan found herself forged anew. Each revelation pulled her closer to her core values. The promise of integrity transformed from abstract aspirations into concrete commitments. By the time they finished their discussion, Susan sensed that a new chapter had begun for both of them. They would navigate the complexities of their lives with awareness that was a promise she intended to keep. As she walked away, the air felt lighter, and she reflected on the mountains she had climbed to reach this moment. No longer was she the woman shackled by uncertainty. She was grounded in her purpose, committed to balancing both vulnerability and strength. The uncertainty ahead felt more manageable, a path where she could take steps with clarity rather than fear. With a determined gaze toward the future, Susan Black had effectively transformed. She had conquered her past and proven her worth to herself, emerging as the architect of her journey forward. She felt empowered, walking decisively toward the new life waiting to unfold. Looking back was not an option. Her gaze was firmly set on what was next: her children's futures, her blossoming independence, and the newfound courage to navigate life's intricate dance with authenticity and strength. The journey wasn't over, but with each step, she understood deeply that she is worthy of the life she desired. A life built on honesty, strength, and resilience. If you haven't already, you need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can inspire your own journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure more stories like Susan's reach those who need it. Comment your reactions and theories about the evolution of Susan's character and the implications for her future journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and learn about the power of reclaiming their narrative.